Hi, Jeremy. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Lyndsey?
Good, good. Come on in. Have a seat. It's very good to see you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, how are things going?
They're good.
Yeah?
They're good.
Very good. Well, I'm happy to hear that, and I'm very happy to see you again.
Thank you.
So, this is our second meeting, so I did want to just briefly go back over your situation to make sure that I'm understanding what you were struggling with the last time, and if anything's changed, please feel free to let me know, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay?
Okay.
So you mentioned last week that when you were 19 years old, you were dating a 17-year-old girl, and things escalated sexually, and things ended up where the father called, and you've been a registered sex offender, correct?
Yeah. I dated her for 2 years. She was 17. I was 19.
Okay.
When her parents found out we had a sexual relationship, they became upset and filed statutory rape charges against me.
Okay. And you now have a daughter that's 11 years old now?
I do, yes. I'm
Okay.
married, and me and my wife have an 11-year-old daughter. Her name is Emily.
Okay, that's awesome. That's wonderful. But you're now struggling with the fact that you're unable to attend her school functions, or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's difficult, being on the registered sex offender list.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go in with a certain amount of feet of a school, and it's really hard not being able to be a part of her extracurricular activities because of that.
Sure, I understand. That, would be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Is Emily becoming more aware of the fact that you're absent at her school functions? Or,
She is,
Okay.
yeah. She says, "Dad, why didn't you come to my dance recital?" And I usually just tell her that I had to work, and
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So, I was really thinking about your situation and where you're at, with your daughter and her being 11 years old, and I thought a good activity that we could do, together, and maybe, gather some feedback from, would be for you to weigh out the pros and cons of telling your daughter. I know that's what you're struggling with right now, is whether or not it's a good time to make that decision and sit her down and tell her. So, of course, if you're not willing to do that, that's fine. We could, do something else. But I really think it would be a good, activity to do that would help you come to a conclusion.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. I'm really struggling with what the right thing is to do.
Okay, wonderful. So you have a pen, and here's your handout. So on this worksheet, as you can see, there's just a pros column and a cons column.
Okay.
So what I would like you to do, and we can actually do it together if you would like, is just go through, and once you come up with a pro or a con, we can kind of discuss it and, work further towards a common goal and determine, what would be best for you in your situation with your daughter, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So do you want to take a second, or do you have a pro to telling her, a positive thing that could come from telling your daughter? Or a con? You can go start wherever you would like.
I think a con is that she's just too young to understand this information.
Mm-hmm. She's 11, right?
She's 11, yeah.
Okay. So that makes her in 5th grade, I believe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 5th grade this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that she'll be able to understand what exactly a sex offender is, and I don't know how much she knows about sex, and
right.
I don't know that she'll be able to handle this information.
And I think that's a very valid concern. Her being so young, although she is going to be entering middle school, so possibly telling her at her age right now would force you to. Or possibly open the door for you to have the conversation about sex education, and that's something you should consider as well. So that's a very valid concern.
Yeah.
Have you guys had that conversation with her about sex education?
No, I think her mom's talked to her a little bit about it.
Okay.
So, and it's uncomfortable because I'm a man, and
sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
The gender difference may be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. What about a pro or a positive thing that would come from you telling your daughter that you're a sex offender?
Well, I'll be able to be more involved in her schooling.
Okay, absolutely. And I know that's, something that you really would like to take part in.
Yeah, I feel like a bad dad, and like I'm missing out on the important activities in our life that that mean a lot to her. I mean, I know what it was like when I was a kid and my dad wasn't there for my basketball games and how bad that hurt.
Sure. And does she express that too? Does she express her hurt and pain about you not being there, or is it just something that you?
Yeah, she tells me that, she's sad that she doesn't get to see me in the audience like her friends' dads.
Okay.
And, so yeah, she tells me that it makes her sad that I'm not there.
So she is recognizing, I
Yeah.
think. Does your wife attend the events for her?
Yeah, Stacy does a good job at going to all the events. And again, we'll just tell Emily that, I'm busy with work and I can't make it. And, Stacy's on board with that with me. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And, being able to attend the school events is something that you can't necessarily change, correct?
Unfortunately, I can't change that.
Okay. And that's because of the situation with you being on, a registered sex offender. So that is, of course, a barrier. It's not something that you can change yourself.
But she'll at least be able to know that I'm not doing it just because I don't want to be there for her. She'll know that I'm not going to these events because I can't go to them. So.
Okay. Well, that would definitely be a positive thing to get that through to her and make her understand your reasoning for not being there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you. What else would you say? Would be a pro or a con?
Another pro. I guess I wouldn't feel as guilty as I feel. I feel like I'm lying to my daughter and I'm holding back from her, and I won't have to feel ashamed about keeping the secret from her, and I'll be able to, talk to her about it and be more open and a better dad.
Okay. All right. Now, has that, guilt and shame been something that you felt for, as long as she's been alive, or is it just more recent as you notice that she's recognizing your absence?
I mean, I've always felt ashamed because, there's a lot of stigma with being a sex offender.
Sure.
And I do feel a lot of guilt ever since it happened because I'm responsible. But looking at my daughter, and I do feel more guilt and more shame because I am lying to her. And we really try to teach her at home how important it is to be honest. And, I'm being a hypocrite.
Now, do you think, I know the fact that you're considering whether or not to tell her is, makes me recognize the fact that you recognize that you're not telling the truth. But do you think, there are some positives to not telling her? We've discussed, a few instances, you wouldn't have to miss performances and, the guilt and shame that you feel. But do you think in a way keeping this from her for the time being and as long as you have, does have its benefits?
Yeah, I think because I protected her.
Okay.
Yeah, I protected her from a lot. And, being 11 years old, if I tell her this, she might go out and tell her friends or tell a friend she thinks is close, and then that person will go and tell others. So she would face judgment. So I think I've done a good job at protecting her from being embarrassed.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's important for you to recognize that, until now, it, is something that you've done to protect her, not to hurt her.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I think a con, what's holding me back the most is that she's going to look at me differently.
Okay. How do you think she would look at you? When you say differently, what do you mean by that?
I think she'll think I'm a monster.
Okay.
Yeah. And that goes back to the other con of her not being able to understand what a sex offender is, because, she might think I'm a monster because the only time people think about a sex offender, they think of a rapist or someone who's really violent. That's not at all what happened in my situation, but that might be how she sees it.
Right. And you can't help that, maybe, because like you said, that is just something that when you hear sex offender, people think. You can't help what others think about, what their judgments are in regards to that claim, right?
Yeah.
But, you're right. Maybe her being so young, being 11 years old, how she defines a sex offender may be different. She might not be able to understand your situation,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that is definitely something that
Yeah.
you should consider.
I just don't want her to be afraid of me, or think about me as a sexual predator, or even in a sexual manner. I'm her father, and
Right.
even telling her that I'm on this registry that has the word sex involved, that makes me uncomfortable. I just don't want her to see me as anything but her daddy and her protector.
Right. Now, do you think she's aware of, I know you touched on this briefly, but is she aware of, sex? I know you said you think your wife has maybe talked with her about it.
Yeah, I think Stacy talked to her a little bit about sex, just because she's getting ready to go through puberty, and we want her to just be familiar with what happens with boys and girls, but it hasn't really been beyond that.
Okay. So do you think she would even understand what a sex offender is?
Like I said, I think she's going to immediately think about a rapist or a child molester or a predator. She's too young for us to talk to her about statutory rape, so maybe if you can help me find some literature on that to give to her, maybe something that's in a reading level of her age, that might be helpful too.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we could do some research and find some education that could help, because I'm sure you're not the only one in this situation.
I feel like it.
Sure, and it can feel very.
I feel alienated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, when you said that you're afraid that she'll look at you differently and not as your father or not as her father, or do you think that's something that would come from the fact that you are a sex offender, or do you think it's just a stigma?
I think it's just a stigma with being on the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think maybe, and I'm not telling you either way, you should tell her, you should wait, but do you think by possibly waiting to tell her, she would be able to be more mature and understand, the difference between the stigma and the truth, and be able to make that decision for herself?
Yeah, I think a lot, and I talked to Stacy about it, that maybe we should wait until she's older, but then I think, a pro of telling her now is she won't have to hear this from anyone else, and yeah, I can put that in the pro list, that, she won't have to worry about rumors, and, that we can go ahead and get this conversation out of the way, and I won't have to wait until she's 16, and then I have a whole other list of reasons not to do it.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And with it being public record, that is that is a very valid concern, that as she gets older, that someone would happen to be looking at that information on the internet and put two and two together and tell your daughter.
Yeah.
How does Stacy feel about that? Is that a concern of hers as well, or?
I think Stacy wants to protect her just as much as I do.
Okay.
Stacy doesn't really talk about it too much with me.
Okay.
I think it's just as uncomfortable for her. She doesn't judge me for what happened. I went to high school with Stacy, so she knew, when the whole situation happened. But, I think Stacy too was just worried how Emily is going to be treated, and, and I think she's worried for me also.
Okay.
And Stacy didn't have a dad, so she knows how important it is for Emily to have me in her life, and so I think Stacy's worried that this would draw a barrier between our relationship. And
and that's also a valid concern.
Yeah.
Is this something that your friends and family are aware of, that your situation being in the registry?
Yeah, everyone that we went to high school with knew, and my family was all involved. We live in a small town, so most people know.
Okay. So that maybe increases the possibility or chance that this information could get out to Emily.
Yeah, I worry that maybe parents who we don't really get along with might let it slip at the dinner table, or say things under their breath to their children. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's, very, like I said, a valid concern, and you can't necessarily control what others say or do, and
Yeah.
like we said, it's public record, so you can't keep that from anybody.
Right.
So, that is something to consider as well. I think that's
Yeah.
very important.
And well, I guess the last pro I can think of is that this might be a learning opportunity for Emily.
Right.
I can educate her on how just an age difference of 2 years can really change your whole life, and how when you decide to be sexual with someone, you have to be really mature and think about every potential outcome. So it'll be an opportunity for her to learn about sex offenders and making the right decisions when it comes to having sex and choosing her partners.
That's very true. And
Yeah.
I just know, as and with my own children, as students in middle school, I believe it's 6th grade as they enter, possibly even 5th grade. But you said Emily hasn't had the sex education talk yet, correct?
I don't know if she's had it at school.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that this is the time where they start to have that conversation and make the children aware of puberty and sex itself. So it could be a learning tool for her. It's just maybe determining whether or not she is mature enough to handle it, and you don't want to be tell her in a way that is going to scare her from you.
Right.
Do you really feel that she is mature enough to have this conversation with you, or do you feel as though obviously there's something that's holding you back. There's we discussed some of the cons of telling Emily the fact that she won't understand. She may not be mature enough for the conversation. And she may look at you differently, but do you, as her father, despite her age, feel as though she is mature to have this conversation? Or
I do. I do. I would just want to stress to her that this would be something that we keep in our family, and it's not something we should really go and tell our friends about. But I think if I, with your help, have some information for her that she can understand it, she'll be able to comprehend this. She's very smart. She's really smart. Do you think we could have Emily come in here and we could tell her together?
That is definitely something that I think would be beneficial to both yourself and Emily. And if you would like to invite Stacy, when you make that decision. But this has been such a short visit, so I would like you to really take this information and maybe be able to go home and consider the pros and cons. Now, I did want to ask you, it sounds like Stacy is a very big support of your situation, and she understands, and this is a valid concern of hers as well. So does she have a lot of the similar concerns that you have, or is there anything that you guys disagree on?
Yeah, I think me and Stacy we're on the same page with this. I think she just is worried about Emily being ostracized and being hurt. So, but I think we're on the same page. I never really made a list of pros and cons with her, so I think this is something I could take to her and see if she agrees or see if she has anything to add before we make the final decision to tell Emily.
Absolutely, and if it's something that maybe, before you make the decision to even tell Emily, if you want Stacy to come in and you guys could weigh the pros and cons to that situation and expressing this to Emily together, that may be beneficial. That's up to you to decide, but I really did think, being able to visibly see it and discuss it with somebody would be beneficial for you. So I'm happy to hear that, it's helped a little bit, but like I was saying, I would really like you to not make a decision today. I think we have a scheduled meeting for next week, Monday as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So just a little bit of homework for, while, throughout the week before we meet again. I would just really like you to revisit this assignment, multiple times and be able to continue to think about it and discuss it with Stacy and, come to a conclusion possibly. And if not, then we can continue to discuss it. Like I said, possibly invite your wife to come. And there's no rush, right, in making this decision. you really want to be able to make the right decision for
Make the right
yourself,
one,
your
yeah.
wife,
Yeah.
and Emily. So, would you be okay with revisiting,
Yeah.
this throughout the week?
Yeah, and I think it would be good to talk about with Stacy. I think
Okay.
we can get more on the same page with it.
Okay. Good. Do you have any concerns or any questions about this assignment?
No,
No?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm very happy that you came and we were able to, go over this with you, and I'm happy to hear that you're
Yeah.
feeling a little bit
Thank you,
better about this.
Lyndsey.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It really feels good to talk to you about this.
Good.
and-
I'm happy to hear
Yeah.
that. Well, I will see you next week, Jeremy. It's good to see you.
It was good to see you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good week.
You too. Thank you.